Hi everyone. Hello. French Vinyl on the third live today. Welcome to the show. It's a real pleasure. I have two friends of mine, VC friends. I started the channel 1 year ago, and it's pretty great. I have VC friends all over the globe. Friends, obviously, Europe, UK, America, Canada, New Zealand. So for the first time ever, Mr. David Atkinson. Welcome to the show.
Thank
How's
you
it
very
going,
much.
man? Yeah. And Steve from All the Words the Stage. I often mention Steve in all my videos. Has been very supportive for almost from day one. Um, Embryonic Robot. This is Brian. This is he wants to talk about a guy with a spreadsheet, so it piqued my curiosity. And since we've been sub to each other, so it's really cool. It's really in the concept of my channel, bring people together, reaching out, and making great things happen. So today we will be talking about our musical path journeys together, showing album that matter for us to us, and it's really cool. So how are you, Steve?
I'm doing great. I mean, David and I were just talking before we went on the air about our bad backs. I mean, other than that, everything is fine.
Yeah. So maybe we'll be waiting a couple of minutes that everyone will be tuning in. I don't see any comment. What is the weather in the UK right now? I know people are.
It's been pretty good the last couple of
Yeah.
days. So I was out on the bike this morning, did about 35 miles, and it's pretty nice actually. It stayed dry today and yesterday, and forecast tomorrow. So it's been raining like crazy over here for the first quarter of the year, but it's good at the moment. Springtime.
Yeah, springtime. And how about in Chicago? How's the weather like?
65 and sunny today.
Oh man, that's great.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
lovely.
it's
yeah,
supposed to
60.
be, I think we're going to hit 80 on Monday or Tuesday. So,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah,
A- a-
exceptionally warm.
And it's been a very special week for both of us, Steve and I. We had the eclipse, which was
Yes.
very
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you weren't on the path though, were you? Or
We
did you
were
sit
the 90,
partial where you
we
were?
we were the 90 percentile.
Oh wow.
I think FBA, you were like 100, weren't you? 100%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Oh wow.
South Shore Montreal, amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Fantastic.
yeah,
So,
and it lasted 2 minutes and 34 seconds where I was. So
okay.
great. Yeah,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
The wildest thing to me was the shadows.
Oh,
The
yeah,
shadows were just exceptionally long. I mean, normally at a certain time of the day, depending upon where the sun is at, you can get long shadows. But with this, it was pretty amazing.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
and yeah, this is perfect. This is the first shout out I want to make, Mister.
MGK is here.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. You really appreciated you were like teasing. You did an announcement video yesterday, and yeah, it's really nice of you. Thank you, Mike. Bonjour, mes amis. He speaks a little bit French. He's originally from Canada, I think. He's been living
Who's
in
that
Boston,
MJK Boston?
MGK Boston. Yeah, he's been
Yeah,
living in
yeah.
Boston
But
for
he's originally Canada, but
yeah.
MGK is how I found your channel, David. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
And
all
you
very
and the other way around, vice versa.
right. Yeah, it's all very incestual. I know.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm really glad. As I said, it won't be like an interview kind of video. I won't only be asking question. You guys have the list. We all pulled together. We worked like really hard this week. So thank you guys. uh, so maybe we can start with the first topic. Let me just check. Pretty interesting. So okay. I think it's a perfect since David, it's the first time you are appearing on a live stream on YouTube. Is that right? You never
That's
had a
right. Yeah.
chance. You never had a chance before. Do you watch some streams? Are you a regular audience for some of our live?
I do and I don't. I see I usually see them afterwards because most of these live streams, at least the ones that I'm aware of, happen in North America. So
Yep.
it's it's past my bedtime by the time these things are typically over, especially if it's say on the West Coast. So I kind of watch them afterwards.
Okay. And yeah, you guys have a few live streams in from the UK vinyl community as well. I know Ian ranking the obscure. He
Yeah.
has a weekly live stream, and so you're the first. Yeah, it's the first time, so I think it might be fair if you just try a very interesting topic. So yeah, intro your channel, the why and the wherefores. We want to know everything.
Okay. Should take about 2 hours. I'll tell you what happened. What I used to do videos occasionally for my consulting business because I'm a bit of a negotiation specialist, and so I got used to the idea of doing videos for business, and those videos were done effectively by my brother, who would he would try and film me while I tried to remember more than one line at a time, and then he said, basically, I'll tell you, yeah, what happened was I got ill. I got a serious illness. And I remember reading, everything's fine, of course, but I remember reading that the thing we miss most about the people who pass is not their faces, it's the sound of their voices. And I've got two daughters, and I thought, oh, maybe I should record a little bit about what I'm like at this particular stage of my life, just in case things go wrong. And there's always something that my girls can kind of, remember me by. Sounds incredibly morbid. But anyway, I started doing these videos, hiking, cycling. I also did kind of current affairs. So occasionally some political issue would get into my head and I'd be chewing it over for 2 or 3 months. And then I'd feel the urge to do something about it. And I decided to start to commit some thoughts to video. And to cut a long story short, I was watching a video by somebody I don't remember, who did a rundown of the best albums by Genesis, which is one of my favorite bands over the years. First band I ever saw live. And I sat through about an hour of this stuff and I thought, this particular guy doesn't really know what he's talking about because he just made mistake after mistake after mistake. And it was one of these things where he'd read a couple of music magazines and put something together to try, maybe clickbait. And I thought, well, maybe I should have a bit of a go at that because, I've spent a lot of time trying to, listening to the band and all that sort of stuff. So I did my own. And it was clunky as hell. And but it ended up being quite popular. I mean, it's got over 100,000 views 3 years later. 100,000 views, incredible. And I thought, well, that's kind of good fun. And then I did one for Van Morrison, I did one for Bruce Springsteen, I did a couple for prog rock, and ever since then I've kind of dabbled in doing more and more that for the vinyl community effectively. And that's kind of how I got started and where I am right now.
Yeah, by that time, did you were you already like a big fan of the vinyl community, like watching a lot of channels, following a certain VC member, or nothing at all?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I was watching videos, but this notion of hashtag vinyl community just didn't register to me until I started following, Mike MGK Boston, and I thought, vinyl community, this is a community going on here. So I started to put the hashtag in, and then realized there's a massive community of people out there, some really knowledgeable, experienced, and enthusiastic people. And I thought, oh, I'm going to start tagging my vinyl community, and I'm going to start following more and more people. And then, I followed Steve, and then multiple others. And so now I'm probably, subscribed to 100, maybe 150 members of the vinyl community.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm retired now, by the way. So I wasn't retired when I started my channel. I'm retired now. So I got nothing to do all day except watch YouTube videos and ride my bike. So I can cover a lot of ground when it comes to the vinyl community now.
Cannot wait to be retired. And how about you, Steve? How whole things started?
Well, first, let me say thanks for inviting me, but I had great reservations about coming on here because when people hear the two of you talk with your accents and then you get my crappy Chicago accent, um, it's just,
I can speak like this if you want. The club
yeah,
locals.
please don't. Nobody has ever said to me, "I love your accent," you know, but
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys have gotten that many times.
No,
Um,
no,
and actually, Mike, he says there about your Genesis rankings. I think that is the first one of yours I watched too, David, because I think that's what Mike had told me. He says you have to watch this, so I believe that was my first introduction to you.
mm,
My channel. Well, what happened? I can tell you the first time I came across the VC. It was during COVID. I know it was probably early 2021, uh, and I was in bed. I always take my laptop with me into bed, so I'm sitting there just surfing around on YouTube for whatever reason. I don't know what I was looking for. I mean, it must have been something music related. And I come across this guy, and he's showing albums he bought, and it's Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll.
mm.
So I'm watching it. My wife walks in. She says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just watching some guy watching. He's talking about the albums he just bought." And she says, "Why would somebody do that?" And so then I watched that, and then started commenting on Gary's channel. And then because then I saw other people were commenting on his channel, then I found those other channels, obviously. And Gary kind of kept encouraging me, saying, he says you should start up your own channel. You got a lot of great stories. You've seen a lot of good bands, and so I think, I don't know, maybe a couple months later, I finally got around to it, and I did it up until probably July of, maybe August or September of 2021, and then I stopped. I was getting relentlessly harassed. Okay, and I just said, "That's it. I'm done." So I took off all of 2022, and I came back in January of 2023. Um, and so far so good. So that's how it came about for me.
How were you getting harassed?
Originally, it was through my email. So I changed my email. If you go on my homepage right now, on my VC channel, you'll see it says my email address is me@me.com. Okay, there is no such thing. So, but yeah, it was just it's just too much to go into here. But it became overwhelming, and so I just left, and I had actually taken on, while I was off, I had taken on, I set up a separate account just under a different name, just so I could still comment on people's channels I liked, but without bringing attention to myself. And so I did that for a while. And Gary and a couple other guys, Sam St. John, Rich Strickler, I would email with them every once in a while, and kept saying, "Yeah, I think I'll come back." And so I did, January 2023, and it's been great since.
Mm.
yeah. And yeah, this is also a perfect transition. A reason why I was hesitating a long time. Did I start? Why? Because I had no Facebook, I have no Twitter. I'm not a social guy, social network guy. Even though let's say I'm younger than you guys. I'm 38, so I was hesitating. I was following a lot of channels already back in the day when I was still living in France, and the trigger was when I moved here. People say, "Hey, you have a great experience. You brought your entire collection to Canada. You were starting traveling all around Europe. Now you're here, so you have your French minds and both perspectives could be interesting." And I thought, yeah, okay, why not? And one of the channel that has more subs in French, he devoted me an interview, and I thought, okay, why? I could speak about my passion. I could share with you guys, and but I won't do that in French because I had already a lot of French friends in Germany, in Switzerland, in the UK. So I thought maybe I could do that in English. Plus, the international vinyl community is much more bigger And yeah, I started one year ago, little by little, not talking about me because who am I at the end of the day. So just like others, talking about our favorite bands. I think the first video series was about my go-to album when it comes to the prog genre, and step by step participating in live streams, saying hey, hello, exchanging with people, and yeah. So it's been a great adventure, definitely. Yeah.
If I may add something here, I think one of the things that I really like about particular channels, um, it's the ones that give a little bit more of a personal reflection.
Yeah.
So the ones that are either overproduced with loads of images or video clips or needle drops, they're good. You can tell there's a lot of work that goes into them. But what's really interesting is to hear people's experiences, and beyond just showing the latest album that I bought last week. And the ones that I tend to tune into regularly, in fact religiously, are the ones that you get to know the person a little bit.
I agree. Yeah, I
Yep.
agree. There are a lot of different channels. Overproduced can be ones, or without any editing. At the end of the day, it's the content and it's the sympathy you have for the person. And why do you follow people's channel? Because we all talk about records, music, and we all have pretty much the same, experience. We were starting buying records as a kid or as a teenager, and now we share with people. So yeah, but this exchange and this video, particularly today, is a great opportunity to so that people can have a better, let's say, overview about what is our path, our journey. So what would be next? Because it's also part of today of the first topic. We are mentioning the development since then. I'll maybe extend to the future. Do you have plans, Davey? Do you have projects on the go right now?
Well, I've got a notebook which has got a list of various lists of video ideas. So there's no shortage of musical videos that I'll be able to pull together. I am doing a bit of a series, which is kind of my top 20 albums for each year since the year I bought my first record. And I'm up to 1978, so there's a long way to go yet. But I'm hoping that's going to allow me to talk a little bit about, the bands I was seeing, where I was living, what I was doing with my work, but also how I was transitioning through the various genres, musical genres, and discovering more and more. Because what I listen to now was not what I was listening to in 1979. I've still got all the content here and elsewhere in the house, and I still drop into it occasionally. But basically, I'm trying to transition, tell a story of, really for my own benefit, really, rather than for an audience. It's kind of think, well, I kind of want to remember it all before I get dementia, so put something down. But also, just finally, you'll know from my channel that it's called kind of Life Matters, and it's about the matters of life. And there are things that are going on in each of our lives beyond the vinyl community, which for me, I want to capture a little bit of that, my cycling, maybe views on current affairs and things like that. So mine is going to continue to be a bit of a mixture. But kind of the majority, probably about 70-80%, is still going to be the vinyl community type stuff.
It's a very interesting. During the first live stream, I have with me another Steve, formerly Vinyl Chef Steve, and he's very into jazz. Not only, and now he decided to branch off, since Vinyl Chef Steve was about food and also about
Yeah.
a bit music, and he decided to create or to separate both topics. So now he has a channel called the Record Mission.
Yeah.
And how is it with you? Is that okay? I mean, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I really like, by the way, your non-music related content.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that obvious? Is that what has been always? How? Yeah.
Well, I'm right up front with people. I mean, if I'm doing a video when I'm out on a long cycle ride, and someone from the vinyl community clicks on that because, you know, they get a notification I've got a new video. It's not for them. Absolutely fine. Just forget it. Go. Just wait for the next musical one, or vice versa. I did think about the having separate channels. I do have a business matters channel that's been sitting around there for years, which I don't do anything with for the last few years. That's still out there. But I decided not to separate my content, and I'll tell you why. I don't know what you guys, I'm interested to hear what you guys have got to say about this, but there is something about when you're producing content that you can become too aware of an audience. And I don't want to play to an audience. I don't want to do stuff that's just going to appeal to this community, because I feel as I'm going to be a bit trapped. So I kind of take this terribly pretentious artistic approach by saying, look, you get what you get. Tune in if you like it. If you don't, absolutely fine. See you next time. Because I'd kind of do it really for me, and I don't want to feel obliged to do it for this audience out there that, you know, most of which I don't know, and they don't really know me either.
What do you think, Steve? And what are your future projects?
Well, you know, to finish up or to follow up on what you and Dave were talking about right before he started answering that question was, you know, David, you had said, you know, you watch a channel and it's, you know, it's like watching an MTV video almost, because they've got the flashy graphics, the quick cuts and everything. They're obviously very skilled people, but I'm kind of with you too. It's not what I'm looking for. For me, it is all about the personality. If I comment on your videos, odds are I like you as a person, or certainly as the way you come across on camera. So I mean, there's exceptions to every rule. There are other people that I will comment on, but if you see me frequently enough in your comments, you know, that's going to tell you what I'm thinking about your channel. And I'm sure that's true with most people. I mean, I have people who comment on my channel on a regular basis, and I'm just assuming they're there because for whatever reason they like me, or at least at the minimum, they like my content. And what am I going to do for the future? You know, I hear people always say, you know, I'm struggling coming up with an idea. Well, for whatever reason, I do not have that problem. That's why I'm making a video a day. and you know, I always tell people, you know, I don't expect you to comment on every video I make, because it's just a lot. I mean, I know what I have, you know, going on during my day, trying to comment on all the people who I enjoy. And sometimes it feels almost like an impossible task. And I mean, one good thing about me, I get by on very little sleep, you know. I mean, I can tell you last night, this was my sleep. I think I went to sleep at 9:30. I woke up at 11:30, sat there and listened to a couple podcasts until about 2, fell back to sleep, got up at 5:30. I've been up since. Okay. Now I will not go back to sleep tonight, probably until 9:30 again. So, and I've always been like that. I've always been able to function with very little sleep. So I could just lay there in bed too and run around ideas in my head. So, you know, I've got that extra time to think, to come up with ideas.
Yeah.
You know, right now I'm in the middle of showing my entire collection, because the idea started with, I wanted to do a purge. You know, we were talking right before we went on that I'm going to be moving in about a year and a half. I'm not going to move all this stuff that I do not listen to. In particular, there's a lot of CDs that I just never listened to, because I bought a lot of them in the 90s. 90s is not a good decade, I don't think, for guys my age. There's not a lot of great music there, at least for me. So I decided I'm going to start just going through it, playing them, see which ones I want to keep. If I don't want them, I'm just giving them away to other people in the VC. I'm not going to sell them. They give you nothing at the shops for them. You know, they'll give you 50 cents a CD. I don't know how it is over in the UK, David, or
same story.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I'd rather throw it out than take 50 cents. So I just give it to friends.
Yeah.
I think I've shipped out already now, probably about 150 CDs since I started this about a month ago. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going through my entire collection. I show that. and then it also helps me with my purge. So that's going to take me a long time to go through because, you know, I've got, I don't know, 2,200 albums and like 4,500 CDs. So, you know, I'm not going to sit there for a half an hour and show parts of an alphabet. I try to keep every video under 10 minutes, whichever ones I get through in that time. That's it.
Wish I could.
Yeah. And if I have to talk about my project, doing live stream is already a 2024 project, so it's been quite a success. I'm very happy, and of course now I have a lot of work, you know. So it's all about time. I'm gonna see my family and friends in 2 weeks from now. A lot of change in my job. I had a trade fair exhibition this week, so sometimes it's really hard to keeping up with YouTube, with other engagements, and but yeah, probably doing some stuff outside. The video I made recently about my 10 favorite record place in Montreal has been quite successful, or let's say people are watch that, and now the idea is to go to meet the record store in person and maybe doing some little reportage or a small capture there. But yeah, time that's the problem.
I think one of the things that I would add is that when you see like rundown videos, you know, the best to the worst or the worst to the best albums of a particular artist, I think one of the problems I experience is just getting started. You know, it's like just getting the energy up to actually do a video. It's not, you know, it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come easy at all. And I find that one of the things that helps me is that I give myself permission not to know everything about the artist I'm talking about. So I just did a video a couple of weeks ago on Yes. I've been following Yes since 1973, but I wouldn't say they're my favorite band. And so I kind of prefaced my comments by saying, this is not the video for you if you're looking for expertise on the band. And I think when you give yourself a little bit of freedom, a bit of latitude to say you're not required to be an expert, it kind of makes the whole job a little bit easier and a little bit less stressful.
What
Yeah.
year are you born, David?
I was born in 19. Well, I'll tell you what, it was the third or fourth track on the Police's first album on the side 2. I was born in the 50s. I was born in 1959.
Okay, I was born in 56. So
Wow.
right. So
I
that's
thought you were
why.
younger than me, Steve.
Pardon me?
I thought you were younger than me.
Oh, well, thank you. But because you said 73, that's why I was just curious. So
Yeah.
okay, you were 14 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was born in 1986, so if you yeah.
Look at all those years ahead of you.
yeah.
Yeah. Let's jump into the second topic, if you might. Very interesting musical personal journey through the genres. Want to start?
One, Steve.
Steve, you're up
Oh.
next.
You want me to start? Okay. This was a question, you know, I sent you an email. I said, I'm kind of getting the same answers for 2 and 3. And then you explained it. It probably would have worked out better if I was able to join you guys the other day for the setting up of this. But once you explained the way you were kind of doing it, it made sense to me. So I'm going to say my musical journey. Well, obviously, growing up in the 60s, okay, I'm at that point, you know, I'm just listening to AM radio because that's all there is. And it's nothing but top 40. You know, you're not getting any deep cuts or underground stuff. I mean, it was purely commercial radio. And the music that I grew up, I still listen to this music a lot. And the 60s, the great thing about those songs, those pop tunes, you know, those infectious pop tunes, and they had to be because they were only allowing them to be between 2 and 3 minutes. You know, they weren't giving them extended plays. So it had to grab you right away. It had to have a hook. And so, I mean, those kind of bands like Herman's Hermits,
Yeah.
you know, the Hollies, the Dave Clark Five, Paul Revere and the Raiders, and then Tommy James and the Shondells. I mean, all of these are just chock full of hits, ones that got played on the radio forever. And depending on what kind of music channel you listen to now, you'll hear them there. So I've always loved, what I always refer to as an infectious pop tune. So that type of music. From there, then I would say, I had, we're going to say, some dalliances. I listened to a little bit of new wave music, but since I first heard Black Sabbath, I've always liked a lot of hard rock, heavy metal music. And I did like some prog growing up. I mean, my first prog album I ever bought was Fragile by Yes. But I really did not get deep into prog probably until about 2000. And I mean, I would listen to it now and then, but I mean, now it's probably the genre that I listen to the most. And I like discovering the bands that have come from like 2000 on, or at least the albums that have come from that point in time, 2000 on. So I listen to a lot of this. I don't know if you ever heard of them, No Sound. The album is called Light Dark. It's not a great band name, but they're a progressive rock band out of Italy, Riverside.
Poland, yeah.
Out of myself. It's their debut. This is first of a trilogy, which is a great trilogy. They're out of Poland. The Pineapple Thief, their newest album, it leads to this. And everything is going to bring you back to Steven Wilson. So And Cannot Erase, I think his best solo album. And Airbag from Norway, A Day at the Beach. In fact, they have a new album coming out in June, I believe. So that's kind of what my life has evolved to as far as my music listening taste. I mean, I still listen to a lot of the hard rock, but prog rock has really kind of consumed me over the last 20, 25 years. So there you go.
Yeah, should I jump in? Yeah,
Please.
yeah. Musical journey. Music has always been very important in my life. So I was born in 1986, as I said. So I was probably 11 or 12 years old in the mid 90s. But at that time, something very weird happened. I wasn't listening the same music as my friends, as my schoolmates. Don't know why. My parents always had this ideal souvenir, nostalgic, maybe a bit related to their when they were young. So my father was born in 55, my mother in 61. So they bought a lot of music in the mid 70s, early 80s, and we had a lot of vinyl at home. And so Queen was my very first love in 95 when this Made in Heaven, this post death, Freddie Mercury passed away in 98, 91. So Made in Heaven, they made 91, or they made Made in Heaven, released in 95. And this was a shock. So I was listening to Queen like every day, and I fell in love with that band. I was 9 or 10 years old. And after that, the Beatles anthology came out on VHS or Betamax or a cassette prior DVD, and they aired on the French TV all the series. And I think I've asked my father, "Hey, what is the best band ever?" Or something. I was 10 years old, and he said the Beatles, and I instantly once again fell in love with that band, and wanted to buy every record. I was taking some chorus piano lessons, and I hate that, really hate that. And we had all this exam at the end of the year, and I failed every time. And when I was 12 years old, I passed the exam. So my mother said, "Now you can buy a CD," and I bought that one. This is the CD I bought in 1998. This is the very first CD I bought when I need a lot of money. And the Beatles have been important. I was a bit outcast, mocked by my schoolmates. Difficult time, and John Lennon listened to his stories. Imagine album, yeah, it has helped me as a young man in the 90s in a small village in France where everyone were listening to boys band or rap or dance music. I was really against, and no, I listened to the Beatles, and yeah. So here we are, and after I think 20 years, as a symbol, first trip I took to the Scotland, I found an OG copy of that one. So still in the Beatles, still love that band. Of course, now I discover a lot of other bands. Uh, when I was 13 years old, my father bought a compilation of this group. Uh, his father, so my uncle, was very into Deep Purple,
Yeah.
and the first time I listened to Child in Time, I was really like shocked. And yeah, this was the music I was into when 13 years old. This was in 1999, so we had a CD back then. Started to have some money from when you had birthday or something, so I was buying a lot of not a lot of CDs because it was freaking expensive to my to my budget. But yeah, I had goal to buy all the Beatles album. It took me 3 years to buy all the albums on CD, and I was spending a lot of time in music store. My father used to work in Switzerland. We were very close to the border with Germany and Switzerland, so they were a little bit cheaper in Germany. So I spent huge amount of time trying CDs, listening to the album, doing a list, waiting for my next birthday that I get 20 franc or euro, whatever, and to buy albums, and really obsessed with that period of 60s, of 70s, the classic rock, which I couldn't call the classic rock by then, but really obsessed. And by the 80s as well, the early 80s new wave stuff. And it took me years to go over that, to be more, let's say, how can I say that, to have more interest about something different, something from my generation. Maybe when I was 16, I had started to have a better life, first girlfriend, more friends at school, and then I say, okay, I will try your shit. But before that, really focus on the music of my father, the music of my parents, yeah, so to say. Yep. How about you, Mr. Ordi?
Well, the first record I bought was a 7-inch single, Paper Plane by Status Quo. And then I quickly got into buying some albums, but I've picked up 2 or 3 of them here. I bought this album, which is Fire Brigade by The Move, which is, everybody knows The Move, Roy Wood, 60s kind of psychedelic pop. I'm sure you've got this one as well, Steve.
I do not have that one. I've got a couple Move albums, but I do not have that one.
Yeah. Anyway, it's brilliant. And I became a big fan of Roy Wood, maybe more of that a little bit later. Then I bought Barclay James Harvest, Early Morning Onwards, which is a compilation. And anybody who knows Barclay James Harvest, or if you don't know, they are kind of a progressive rock band. They're heavily influenced by the Beatles, kind of a folky vibe, but with Mellotron. And they, beautiful melodies. They became a bit more harder edged later on, where the guitar was pushed out front as opposed to the Mellotron and the soft vocals. But really, really good, really good. Then I bought this one. Now, have you guys got that one?
I have that.
Yeah, well, I was a big fan of Deep Purple, but couldn't afford to buy the original album. So this one was about £1 or 50 pence or something like that. And I think you guys might know about the history of this one. I've kind of forgotten, but I think it's done by session musicians, obviously doing cover versions. And I think they were members of Thin Lizzy.
It is Thin Lizzy, yeah, because the guy, he approached them and he asked them, I want you to record an album of Deep Purple tunes. And he had money. He footed the bill for the recording studio. And yeah, it's Thin Lizzy doing Deep Purple covers. There are like 2 other songs on there.
Yeah.
The one guy does. I forget what his connection is, but
Palamatoon maybe, or Fireball, Dan, Palamatoon, Karina, Black Knight, Speed King, Strange Kind of Woman, Rising Sun, and Hush.
yeah.
So anyway, that was good. And then there's a pattern here because all of these are budget releases because I couldn't afford full price albums. And then, of course, I got that one, which most of you guys in the vinyl community probably got, to be honest, which is, at the time you just think, well, this is, Dark Side of the Moon was either about to come out or it was out. And of course, this was like the early stuff. And anybody who was kind of a newcomer to Pink Floyd in those years was probably a bit sniffy about this album, thinking, well, this is just the old stuff. It doesn't really matter. It's all about Dark Side of the Moon or metal, echoes and all that sort of business. Yet as the years pass, this is a phenomenal compilation. It's absolutely superb. And that early stuff, you go back to it. So that's
the US, or at least it was probably the North American release. It had a different cover.
Yeah.
So
I then what happened is I got into I was hoovering up all these compilations or these cheap ones. I started to get into my first full price albums. I was lent albums by a school friend, one of which is over your shoulder, Steve, which I still don't have on vinyl, which is the Red Grand Funk album. Just got it on CD. I'd love to have that on vinyl, but I haven't got around to finding a decent copy yet. And then I got into, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, 2 out of 3 and bad, I guess. I got into classical music, which was really interesting. So I was kind of really lucky because I grew up and I was acquiring vinyl records before I was long enough in the prog era and the hard rock era, the kind of the blues rock era, that when punk came along, I was living it real time. So I got caught up in the punk wave. And so, most of the major punk bands that, have legendary status these days. And then new wave. And then I started to dabble in jazz. And then by the time the 90s came around, I went all in on Americana. There was a load of stuff being released. And then I suppose in the last 10 years, I acquired more and more movie soundtrack stuff that's interesting to me. But all of that journey, I've not dropped anything. So it's just accumulating more and more interest in more and more musical genres. So I kind of can, depending on my mood, I can pick anything from, Deep Purple album, Zeppelin album, to some, piano music, whatever. So a big mixture.
Yeah.
Oh, I did forget to mention too, FBA made me think of it when you said you were playing piano. When I was like 15, I started playing bass guitar. My best friend, he was a guitar player. He had a band. Didn't like the bass player he had. One time he just asked me, he says, "You ever think about playing?" He says, "I'll teach you." So went out and bought a bass guitar and then ended up playing in the band until 78 when I went in the Air Force.
Yeah. I think 16 years old was for me a little bit turning point. As I said, I started to have more friends or more confidence in myself. And I was at high school in a very small city, Mulhouse. And I was discovering a lot of different stuff back then. I met my best friend. He was originally from Tunisia. So I was more in contact with Turkish music, with hip hop. And one of my favorite album by that time. This is a French hip hop. You probably never heard of that. You were part of this very successful French rap band called I Am, and this is his solo album released in 1998. And the topic addressed. So but it's in French, so it's pretty hard if you don't listen to don't speak the language. And I bought that copy when I was 16 because I had a lot of friends at school They were originally from Algeria, Morocco, so the northern part of Africa. And yeah, I was a little bit interested of, hey, what is that rap music, hip hop music? Because obviously they were these people from this place. They were crazy about that. And in the same year, I bought something very different. Yeah, yeah. Iron Maiden. Uh, I have a cousin. He's 12 years older than me. So he was talking about when he was young, Metallica, all this band, Iron Maiden. This is the very not that copy. I bought that on CD, but just for the record, this is the very first Iron Maiden album I bought, and I listened to that every day. The summer when I was 16, my parents still remember, and yeah, didn't buy all the Iron Maiden album, but this was part of my youth, so to say. And after that, I kind of dropped with buying albums because Spotify, not Spotify, but Napster, Emule, and all that craziness. So was still buying a lot of music and listening to a lot of music, downloading is well not always legal, and or buying CDs sometimes in Germany. And I remember 2012. I was listening to a lot of music on YouTube, and I was surprised to see people commenting, young people commenting. You had this Deep Purple live concert, and you had people commenting. People they were I was 24. People they had maybe 12 or 11. They were saying, "Hey, I listen to that music. I get mocked by my friends." And people they were very supportive. And I thought, oh, I wish I had this. But 10 years, I was born maybe 10 years too late. And yeah, I was consuming a lot of music on YouTube, having playlists, and still enjoying it for this one. This is a band I discovered maybe 2018 to 2017. This band and the band Mountain I had no idea about. I took a trip in Canada. The first back in the day, I was still living in France, and since I have family in Niagara, and they had this amazing classic rock radio station, it was all new to me as a European guy, and they were playing "I'm Your Captain," and I said, "Oh, what is that band?" And I made some research, and yeah, this it took me 2 years to get a hold of that one, the Red album, the double live album. We're an American band. Uh, we're an American band. I have a fun story to share. Um, First time I went to the U.S. on holidays, we had this trip with my wife in D.C., Washington. And after doing the museum, we started sitting in a bar, the typical bar with dozens of screens showing the hockey game. And we are an American band, played loudly in the room, and we are waiting for our burgers. And sitting next to our table, a couple, maybe 50, 40 years old, and that guy is, what is that band? And when I go to the bathroom, I said it's Grand Funk Railroad. So when he left the place, give me a thumbs up. I think the only day I felt American.
Completely different band at that point. I mean, from the Red
Yeah,
album to
yeah,
We're an American Band. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. They
but
had,
both very good albums. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Steve made a great video about Grand Funk Railroad. Is
Oh, thank you.
yeah. You made that
Yeah,
5 years.
actually, that's autographed by Mark Farner.
Yeah,
Nice one.
I saw
yeah,
him solo in '87, and he was playing a small bar. 400 people were there,
Goodness me.
and yeah, it's heartbreaking to see
Yeah.
a guy you saw play in front of 20,000 people who is now playing in front of 300 people in Elgin, Illinois, at a place called the Blue Moon Ballroom. Um, yeah, but I brought the cover with me, and I went back around and I asked, would Mark sign this? And they're like, sure, come on in. So
yeah,
walked back there, and he signed it for me.
I
yeah.
hope he was doing it for fun and not for money.
Well, I don't know if you ever followed any of the Grand Funk soap opera.
No.
There's man, you can find out. There's a documentary on YouTube. You can find. They went through a lot of stuff. I don't think any of them are wealthy.
No.
So no.
Yeah.
kind of
And yeah,
sad.
if you don't know about Steve's channels, he has this amazing series called 5 Years in the Life of an Artist. So this is a really cool. It doesn't last 20, 30 minutes long. It's really sharp, gets to the point,
Yeah.
and usually you are picking really essential area of an artist, even though
Yeah,
it's
it's what
pretty.
I think is
Yeah,
their best 5 year run.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
and it's so. And after that, I made my journey. I say yeah, 80s new wave. Find also interesting all the bands that have been inspired by Kraftwerk, and maybe other band like Psychedelic Furs, Echo and the Bunnymen. They have been inspired by Joy Division work, but I like them both. This has been very important to me as well. Orchestral Maneuver in the Dark,
OMD. Wow.
OMD. Yeah, this is a Japanese press. I also had the UK press, and it's really amazing. During the COVID, Niam, the prog nerd, her channel started to be very very huge, and she made a video with her father, very interesting, very touchy, and he talked about one album, the Grateful Dead, American Beauty. That's the
Mm,
first album I bought over here because of that video, and
mm.
he was mentioning that one. It was pretty hard, COVID time, and he said organization, and that song, yeah, Promised. It's really great, and we often talk about that band with some French YouTuber, Assistundi. He's in a comment or a big star, and we all agree. And
If I can just interject before we move on, I saw OMD supporting Gary Newman and Tubeway Army when they came
wow,
on stage with a tape recorder, a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and they were the support band. Great, it was great night.
yeah, and then internet gave me the chance to discover more obscure stuff. So this is a shout out for Mike. This is a band from Boston. This is the ultimate. I'm still looking for the other one, Behold and See. This is the Akama issues, and really like this psych bands. What I forgot to mention, I was really crazy about this guy when I was probably 15, 16 years old as well, because of that movie Forrest Gump. When they were walking, in jungle, there is this scene, and you hear that all over the watchtower that has been overused, and didn't know what it was, and finally find out, wow, that's Jimi Hendrix. So Jimi Hendrix has been important to me as well. This band, this album, maybe a little bit later when I was maybe
Judas Priest, yeah,
20. Judas Priest, yeah,
yeah.
this is their second album. It's not the Judas Priest Breaking the Law.
Yeah.
It's almost proggy, I would say. I discovered the gray old whistle tests.
All
uh,
grimaces.
Yep.
yeah, there are some great footage on YouTube, and yeah, it blew my mind when I discovered that.
Whispering
And
about Harris.
yeah,
Yeah, Whispering Bob.
Yeah.
and this one I was looking for years.
Yeah.
Gene Clark, I'm a very big fan of him. The all everything he made when he left the Birds, with the Gostin brothers, with Doug Diller, the banjo player.
Mm.
This is for me the how I could imagine when I was the dream to move to North America, when I was in Europe, when I was bad with COVID, and I was listening to this kind of music, and I couldn't imagine myself driving. It's kind of stupid now because now I'm living here, and life is good everywhere. But yeah, and another important band I discovered prior getting to vinyl. This
Yeah.
one definitely. This is a very important album to me.
Yeah.
Disraeli Gears. They recorded that one in New York. Cream, you all know Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, Jack Bruce at their best. Very psyche, very very bluesy, and
You like your power trios: Grand Funk, Jimi Hendrix, Cream.
Rush, Blue
Right.
Cheer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
I
yeah,
oh, you,
yeah,
go on.
yeah, and I listened to this amazing radio station in Belgium. The drummer of the prog band Machiavel, Marquisai, he created a radio station, and he has this amazing show. I often talk about that guy, and I could meet him once. This is back in the days when he was still having his radio. This is he's signing all the album, and he's very interesting. He was combining classic rock, amazing story, amazing, and very knowledgeable. And he's the one who gave me the guts to go into prog rock. 2018, 2019. Yeah, I'm not listening to progress forever. I knew about the prog genre. I knew about Peter Gabriel left Genesis. I knew about that stuff, but I never really got into that one. And the very first album, I remember I say, okay, now I'm giving me my chance to go into prog rock. I listened to that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Come on, Steve.
And yeah,
Sorry, I've got it, but I don't have it handy. It's
no,
not,
yeah,
it's not
no,
what I was showing today.
no problem. And first prog album I listened to um, blew my mind as well.
Yeah.
I think I listened to that first song and then I stopped. It was too much to me, too much. And then I tried the next day, and you say that in your video, it has to grow on your. It wasn't music like the Beatles. The Beatles, they didn't have recorded tape machines, so they had to remember the melody on the next day. And if they remember, okay, it's good enough. We can record that. But that time, it was different. And your video you made about prog rock with your amazing. Yeah, it's a long hair. It's a standard video. How music, how they are classically trained. They have it's a great video, and yeah, this is so important. It's not my favorite album, but it's so important. It's the first time I say, okay, now I'm old enough to listen to prog. I often compare prog like a glass of brandy and a cigar. It's not something you enjoy when you're 35. When you're 21, when I was 21, I was buying cheap vodka and and going to disco, and you know, and yeah. So this is my getaway to the prog genre.
I'll
This
tell you
one.
what's really remarkable about that album, and that is it's fully realized, it's crafted to the almost infinite detail. It's like everything they'd done up to that point, they didn't rush it. I mean, they were on a tour album. They were producing an album a year. That was the way it was back in the 70s. But when you consider how young those guys were, that is a real work of art. It's not something that was kind of improvised. It's not something that was kind of thrown together to get something to hit a release date. It stood the test of time because it's so beautifully crafted.
Yeah, and it sounds a bit modern. It sounds a bit modern
timeless.
because they incorporated this RAP pro soloist, the producer. He grasped the art of the band. So and Steve Hackett was experimenting all sort of stuff with his guitar, and it's and it's important. I took a trip 6 months ago in the UK, and it might sound stupid, but I found the very first press of Nursery Crime with the Pink Scroll label.
Oh yeah.
And I was sleeping in Exeter, in the not far from High Stevie.
Southwest.
Yeah, and in this very charming city with Victorian house, and I have my copy of that, and I'm walking down the streets, and I'm in the UK, and it might sound stupid, but sorry, it's I was at Cloud 9 reading and finding a copy of that one, and yeah, so.
Stevie, I have not shown my spreadsheet just to put you at ease.
Yeah, hi Stevie. Yeah.
So this was my breakthrough or gateway album as well into the prog genre as well. Up to that point, there was a couple of other albums that, other than the Grand Funk one, that, as I say, I borrowed. But this was a really important album to me as well. And this comes back to The Move and Roy Wood. After he left the Electric Light Orchestra, he produced this solo album. And it's a really eclectic mix of all sorts of musical styles, but it's fabulous, absolutely gorgeous. So that was, alongside selling them by the pound, this was a full price album, which I wasn't buying too many of at that particular point. And just one more that was important in those early days, and that's Tangerine Dream.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Phaedra. Absolutely amazing album. It's still my go-to Tangerine Dream album after all these years. Although it's actually not the best one. I think the best one is Ricochet. So if you're familiar with the catalogue, the live album Ricochet that came, I think, 2 albums downstream from this one, was absolutely superb. But yeah, what a fantastic band back in the day. Of course, they tarnished their reputation by producing movie soundtracks every 5 minutes all the way through the 1980s and 90s.
Yeah, the one I do like is the soundtrack to Thief with James Caan.
Yep.
Familiar with that one?
Yep.
I've got it, but I'm not really familiar with it.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying a quick shout out to Michael Noland. He's been also very supportive. He has his show with Royce sometimes. Royce in the house, very great guy. Said very kind words in his channel. So thank you. If you don't know about Michael Noland, he does amazing street podcast live. So check it out.
Romy, is anyone asking any questions yet?
Do you have questions, guys? Not about the weather, please. It's not because we have someone from the Britain. Sorry.
MGK just wanted to know if I was seeing Steve Hackett in concert soon. He was here like 2 weeks ago. I ate the ticket because of my back, so I didn't go to the show.
Okay, I think we cover. Or maybe Steve, do you have something to add? Or
no, I'm good on that one. We can do the next time.
We can do next. Perfect. Next one would be third topic. Ooh, and yeah, we had that discussion with Steve because you found right the same albums for question 2 and question 3. It might be, yeah.
Originally I did, but then when you kind of explained what you were doing, I didn't show any of these, but I have mentioned a couple of them.
Okay.
But do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. I will do these in chronologic order and my experience with them, how I encountered them. So it's 1965. I am 9 years old. I go to the movie theater to see the movie Help.
Ooh.
Okay. So after seeing the movie, I had to have the album. So I'm quite sure this is the first album ever bought, not with my own money, I don't think. I'm sure my mother got tired of me badgering her and she bought it for me. So, and to this day, it is my favorite Beatle album. Abbey Road is number 2.
Yeah.
This is number 1. I know Abbey Road is the greater piece of art, but I'm just talking about what I prefer to listen to, what I enjoy the most. It is always this album. I think it always has been. So that 1965 when I'm 9 years old. So then up next, let's move up to 1970. At this point, I'm 14, and I'm really getting into music, and I'm at a party, and somebody puts this album on.
Ooh, yeah.
And I'm like blown away. And like the band that I started playing in 1971, we did play a lot of Black Sabbath. So yeah, I mean, everybody knows it. It starts out with the rain and the thunder, and it's just like, what is this? I've never heard anything like this, especially, up to this point, really, because this comes out early in 70. This is February of 73. So really, I'm just 13 and a half at this point. And it, all I've heard up to this point is all, a lot of that pop tunes that I heard on AM radio. Never heard anything that heavy. I've heard some Led Zeppelin and, Hendrix, Cream, but this was, they changed the ball game. It was just a completely new sound. And to this day, they are my favorite band. I know they're the most important band to me because, like I say, when I was playing in a band, we played a lot of Black Sabbath, especially from those first five albums. I still listen to that album a lot today. And because of my spreadsheet, I can tell you how many times I've listened to that album. I looked it up before we started. Okay, Help I've listened. Now this is since February of 2005. Um, Help I've listened to 105 times. The Black Sabbath debut 111 times. So that's in 19 years' time. So they're getting a fair amount of spins during the course of every year. I don't know if you ever heard the story, David, why I started doing this.
No, I can't remember.
Okay. It was February 18th, I think, 19th of 2005. My wife and I had been on vacation in London. We're flying back. I get on the plane and I got 8.5 hour flight here. So I grab my iPod and I'm just spinning around thinking, what do I want to listen to? What do I want to listen to? So I just said, you know what? I'm going to listen to the Black Sabbath debut. And just as I'm sitting there, I think to myself, man, I wish I knew how many times I've heard this album in my life, because it has to be hundreds of times. And I decided right then and there, I'll just start documenting it. And so I have kept a spreadsheet since February 19th of 2005. Every day I enter what I listen to. And so, in fact, my most listened to album just happened. Well, the first one to ever hit 150 plays. It's Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
It just happened like within the last couple of weeks.
Must have been the eclipse.
Pardon me?
Must have been the eclipse that inspired you.
It was, because I did a live stream during the eclipse, and that was one of the albums I picked to show. And then I think I mentioned this earlier, the first prog rock album I ever bought. I heard Roundabout on the radio.
I know that one, Fragile.
Well, I bought Fragile. And this was, like I say, as much as Black Sabbath was different for being heavy, this was just a completely different song structure and style for me. It wasn't verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, there were all different kinds of different time signatures. They're singing about subject matter I've never heard before. And, it's got the great artwork of Roger Dean. So, and that I have listened to 81 times. So, and I think, Close to the Edge is my most listened to Yes album. That's my favorite Yes album. But yeah, those are the three big albums that I can point to at specific times, why they affected me. The Beatles, obviously, Black Sabbath, because it gave me my favorite all-time band, and then Yes, it introduced me to progressive rock. So
it's very interesting what MGK said. I think you should have imagine you would have sit on the plane with someone who works at the Silicon Valley. This guy would have developed an app, for the VC. Just we know how many times do we?
Yeah. I'm a spreadsheet, freak.
Spreadsheet monkey, we used to call him.
Pardon me?
Spreadsheet monkey, we used to call him at work.
So I have a spreadsheet for all the concerts I've been to. I have, so it's very handy. But too bad MGK's Boston isn't on here, because he actually met his wife Patty because of Excel spreadsheets. He was taking a class with her, and it was, I believe, about learning Excel, and they were in it together, and that's how they met.
This is what we call the excellence. Anyway, okay. Question for you, David, and you're next.
MJK Boston. Have I seen any concerts in Canada or the US? The answer is yes and no. I've been to the US and Canada many times. I spend holidays, business, countless times really. But the only time I've never seen a name band in the USA or Canada. But I did spend a couple of weeks in Manhattan on a trip with a couple of friends, and we saw multiple gigs, but these were like basement gigs of up and coming bands, none of which made it as far as I can tell. I'm afraid I've not seen any name bands in the United States. But coming back to the big milestone albums for me, these were like pivotal albums. I think in my musical journey. Sadly, the most recent one is 1978. Let me just shoot them past you. The first one was A Trick of the Tail by Genesis. And I hate to be a Genesis bore, but you know, it was my first band I saw, and you know, I saw them in April 24th, 1975, doing the Lamb Down on Broadway. And within the space of about 6 weeks, Peter Gabriel had left the band. And I was just getting into Genesis and going back through their, you know, acquiring their back catalogue. And I was devastated. And I thought, oh my God, this is just going to be so, you know, this is the one band I really feel a great affinity for, and they're finished. And there was lots of stuff in the music press about them kind of carrying on, maybe doing instrumental only type stuff in the absence of a singer. And of course, we all know the history of Phil Collins going to the microphone. But I remember that this album, they announced this album was going to come out, and they did about, I think, 3 promo videos that they had in a record shop in Newcastle where I was working. It was called JJ Windows. It's still there, although it's a bit expensive for vinyl these days. But every lunchtime I would go up there and watch these promos that were on a loop. Ripples, Trick of the Tail, and Robbery, Assault and Battery. And I thought this is going to be really good. And when on the day it was released, I bought this copy. Actually, it's not this copy, because the first one is I've got multiple copies of this one. This is a later version. I thought I was absolutely blown away. It's fantastic. And then I was really lucky to see them on the 1976 tour, where they toured this album, and they only did a handful of gigs. I think a couple in Canada, maybe in the US, and 2 or 3 in the UK. And it was just mind blowing. Real pivotal moment in my musical experience. Absolutely fantastic concert. And there's a film called Genesis in Concert that was filmed at the Glasgow Apollo, where I went to see that. So that when that film came out, it was on a double bill with Rick Wakeman's White Rock in the cinemas, and we went, me and my good buddy Brian, sadly no longer with us. He and I went to watch the films and kind of revisited our experience at Glasgow. It was absolutely amazing. The next big breakthrough for me was a completely different genre, and that was this album by the French composer Camille Saint-Saëns. And this is his 3rd symphony. It's called the Organ Symphony. And you guys are familiar with Close to the Edge, the title track of the album. And there's that great break about 2/3 of the way through the track where Rick Wakeman's playing a church organ. And it just sounds amazing, doesn't it? It's absolutely fantastic. This blows it away completely. I mean, I don't know if you guys have got a passing interest in classical music, but this is the album I recommend to rock fans, because it is hyper dynamic. It's got amazing climaxes, and the organ chords just blow your socks off. It's absolutely fantastic. And this was important to me because up until this point, this was 1976, classical music was wallpaper music to me. It was kind of all background music. And even though I'd acquired some budget label stuff, it never really grabbed me until this full price album came out. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is why people really, really love classical music. So if you're interested in progressive rock and you're open-minded to try some classical, just like prog, takes multiple listenings before you get into it, but it's absolutely fabulous. So that got me into a lifelong journey in classical music as well. And then the next album that was a great milestone was not this particular copy, but this was Darkness on the Edge of Town by Springsteen. Friend at work lent me this album, and it just completely blew me away, because The lyrical content, I know, I mean, he admits himself that he's a bit of a fraud. He's the working class hero, and it's kind of a bit of a persona. So I'm kind of open to the idea that people think he's a bit of a fraud, but he was writing about stuff and about people who were in my community. People who were, didn't have a lot of money, people losing jobs, factories closing, or people working, from dawn till dusk, broken relationships and dead ends and all that sort of stuff. And I thought the lyrical content, as well as the music, really grabbed me. And then I became a big fan of Springsteen. And I went cold on him a few years ago, but I saw him last year, and actually I'm seeing him in 3 weeks' time in Cardiff in Wales. Might be my last Springsteen gig, but he still puts on a show. But this is the album that Head and Shoulders, absolutely amazing album.
The Trick of the Tail, that was my gateway for Genesis to be listenable. I remember reading a review, it was either like in Circus Magazine or Cream Magazine, when it was either Foxtrot or Nursery Crime came out, just a rave review about it. So I bought it blind, put it on. It wasn't for me at all. It just wasn't what I listened at that point. I mean, I'm playing in a band and I'm playing nothing but, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Grand Funk, that kind of music. So it wasn't for me. And it wasn't really until, God, probably sometime in the 90s that I got Trick of the Tail and Wind and Wuthering. And now I own an entire discography, but it was because of those two albums that did it for me.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm next, I guess. It was really hard to cherry pick 3 albums, but we were talking about the journey when I was younger, when I was discovering music. So I was thinking about what was the emotion, the special connection I had with those albums, and I choose three ones. The first, uh, yeah, my father, I think he refurbished the hi-fi system we had. He still had this old turntable, and he has a cassette deck. And but back in the days, I was still my Walkman when I was going in junior high, and I heard that very same copy when I was 14 years old, and I discovered Pink Floyd. I discovered that album, and it was a really shock because I wasn't prepared for such composition, atmosphere. Back in the days, I was listening to a lot of Beatles, Led Zeppelin, or more disco sounds, ABBA. My mother was very into ABBA, and the first time, I remember my father put that one on the turntable. It was really a shock. He was calling that progressive music, and I was enjoying that Shine on the Crazy Diamond. Because it took me like 17 minutes when I was biking to my school. So still a great memories. I brought my father gave me that copy, so now I have this with me forever. I don't need another. I don't need an audiophile. I don't need a UK press. He bought that one when he was 20 years old. He has, back in the days, the military. When you go military service, or I don't know how do you say it correctly. 1 year you're on duty, and this is one of the only few albums he had bought in 75. So very special meaning to me, this album by Pink Floyd.
Fantastic album.
Yeah. And then connection with Canada. Once again, I will talk about my father once again. He took a trip in 79. They weren't that popular in France back in the days, but he saw them live in Hamilton, which is a close city close to Toronto. And he was blown away. So he brought a couple of their records, and I discovered when I was kid, and when I was dreaming about Canada. I took the first trip here in 2013, and this is the music I just wanted to listen to when my plane is landing in Toronto, in YYZ or YYZ. The intro of how does the song A Passage to Bangkok, which is a brilliant intro, and you know all that story. 2112. We discussed that album during our prog stream. We have a prog stream with Steve, hosted on Steve's channel, and Alex Beer on vinyl. And yeah, we all agree this is a masterpiece. And I have this very special connection with that one, Rush 2112.
You know that's a crime against fashion, though, that album. When you hold up the back cover.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
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 yeah. The outfits they're in. Yes,
yeah,
that is.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
yeah. And the last one is an album I discovered in 2017. I made a burnout at work, and I took a couple of days off. I went to Italy with my wife, and when we were driving to Italy, we were constantly listening to this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Forever Changes.
Forever Changes Love. I discovered literally that time this one. They were not famous, or the thing is, I'm still on catching up. All these bands, they were not as big as the Doors, as Grateful Dead, as the Pink Floyd. So I'm working on finding discoveries, digging out some hidden treasure from the past. It's not that hidden treasure, of course, but I had a CD back then, and really interesting what they have made. It sounds almost to me as a perfect album. There is nothing wrong. It's almost like a debut album from Crosby, Stills and Nash or Abbey Road. There is nothing wrong. There is no bad song. There is nothing I would say dull on that one. Spanish influence, psychedelia. Uh, it's a pity they never were touring in Europe. I think they wanted to stay not too far from their dealer, maybe. I don't know. In the West Coast, he had a very artfully. He made another album, Vindicator. He had to go to jail for some stupid things. He passed away 20 years ago, and it's still one of my favorite album. I discovered very later, but I remember I was playing that record. We were working in a small office in Switzerland, and I remember my colleague. She was like dancing on the Spanish guitar, and she said, "Hey, what is that?" So yeah, very, very, very interesting. So
Yeah, great album.
yeah, Forever Changes.
I kind of, I obviously, I said earlier that I kind of started listening to music seriously in the early 70s. And I kind of was really sniffy about the 60s for a very, very long time because the BBC Radio 1, which was the pop station in the UK, kept banging on about the Beatles all the way through the 1970s. So we had prog, we had hard rock, we had the blues rock stuff, we had punk, new wave, and yet the mainstream radio station kept banging on about the Beatles. And of course, later on, I acquired all the Beatles stuff as well, and the Stones stuff, and all the classics, including Forever Changes. But for years, I don't think it was just me. There was a bit of my generation kind of thought, well, the 60s is for old guys. And now I'm an old guy, so I'm open to it now.
Yeah, I have another problem. I was born in a small city in France. I'm 30 years old. I thought maybe will I really start a channel talking about band from the 60s with my stupid French accent? People will take me seriously because you guys, you live through those years. You're native speakers. So what can I bring to that? This was part of my reflection I had back in the days, but I feel legitimate to talk about because I have an emotion. I listen to that one. It's not only about, hey, I have a great picture disc. Show me my picture disc. I know the music on that. I read a lot of books. Um, Beatles, Neil Young is a great. Still have to Steve. You said Greg Lakes and Geddy Lee. I really lack of time, but it's on my list. And it's nice that we have this community of people. We are people from all around the world. We can chat about music. We can meet sometimes, and yeah, it's really
You
good.
know, it's funny, David, that the difference in our age is just 3 years, but a lot of times 3 years is a big gap for music.
Yeah.
I mean, it completely have people have completely different tastes and likes.
Yeah.
And you grew up thinking the 60s music was for old guys. I grew up thinking the music from the 50s was for the old guys. You know, I completely dismissed Elvis and Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, all of them, because I'm like, those are oldie acts. That's what they were playing on the oldie channel, you know. And now I have a box set of Little Richard. I watched his documentary. I've read his autobiography. You know, I've got a great Jerry Lee Lewis live album from the Star Club in Hamburg. You ever come across that live album? Fantastic, fantastic album. And I
Oh yeah,
I certainly could have seen Jerry Lee Lewis live growing up, but you know, Elvis I would have missed, you know, because he didn't tour much anyway. Um,
yeah. That version on the What I Say is considered one of the best, I think. Jerry Lewis, right? The concert,
yeah,
yeah. Or
yeah,
Roll Over Beethoven. I think one of the songs is considered absolutely
yeah. And
on.
he's just playing
Yeah,
on that album. He's just playing with a house band. He just traveled
yeah,
by himself, and
yeah,
wherever he went, he said, "Just give me a band."
yeah.
And
This is also what I find interesting. As I said, when I was 14 years old in the year 2000, when you were young, you had to listen to new music. It was
Yeah.
old, it was bad. When I said I was listening to 80s music in '99, I was outcast. 20 years later, it's different. People are listening to music. Sam St. John, for instance, very into Bob Dylan. It's a perfect example. You
right,
have a lot of great young people. They rediscovered Hendrix, Kraftwerk, or Pinup. Pinuppy is in the chat in the Peanut Gallery. He's a young guy. He's in his 20s. He's discovering all these bands, and I think this is amazing. Now we can discuss about that. We don't have this stupid mindset we used to have when I was at high school. I was suffer of that. So this is interesting.
I think the other thing is that the genre we haven't talked about that must have been amazing back in the day was when the blues greats were out there touring, where you got your Howlin' Wolf and Lightning Hopkins and Muddy Waters and so on. Because you listen to their stuff now, because I picked most of that stuff up on CD when I was buying loads of CDs back in the 80s and late 80s and throughout the 90s. It's raw as hell, but it's just so full of energy and commitment from the singers. You know, it's just amazing stuff. And there's, even though you had the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff and all that sort of stuff that came along later, and there are, you know, you go to, you know, Chicago clubs, Buddy Guy's Club or something like that, there's blues artists are performing kind of all the time, but it's just so out of the mainstream now. I just think it would have been amazing to see those artists back in the day.
I did get to see Muddy Waters. He opened up for Clapton one time when I saw him.
Wow.
Okay, so now we are on topic number 4, which
Speaking
is
of
which is
concert,
great because we are talking about gigs. So perfect transition. We want to start first.
Go on, I'll go because it's I've covered a couple of them already. Really, the first one was Trick of the Tail, Genesis Glasgow Apollo, 9th of July, I think it was in 1976. Unforgettable. Springsteen touring the river. First time he came to the UK to tour Born to Run. Back in the day, didn't come back because, you know, if you followed Springsteen, you know he had legal difficulties back in the late 70s. And it was about 3 years before Darkness on the Edge of the Town was able to be released. And he came back to the UK for his first proper tour. And I saw him twice, once in Newcastle. And I in those days, and once in Birmingham. So I traveled 200 miles down to where I live now. But I always remember back in those days, I was seeing concerts at Newcastle City Hall. And the last bus home was about 11 p.m. And the concert venue used to always empty about 11:15, so people all scrambling for the last bus to wherever they lived around the city. And when Springsteen played in 81, we were still there at 12:15, and he was doing Rockin' All Over the World, the Fogerty track. Status Quo did the cover, the famous cover. And everybody was still there, everybody was still there. And people were just trying to walk home, get taxis or whatever. It was so memorable. It was absolutely incredible. And then I saw the other gig that is really meaningful to me, which is another classical one, is I got into Richard Wagner, and he did this 4-hour opera called Tristan and Isolde. That it's like four hours of kind of nothing until the climax at the end, and it's just fantastic. And I got into that piece of music, and I was desperate to see a live performance of it. And it was before our children were born. Me and my other half, I found a gig going on in Vienna. So we had a weekend in Vienna, ostensibly to see Tristan and Isolde at Vienna Opera House, and it was another great, unforgettable gig. And between all of those gigs, there's been countless others. I saw the Clash many times, the Police many times, U2 back in the early days, REM back in the Murmur Reckoning years, and then just so many fantastic gigs.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to me since in a small city in the 90s, I don't have the same chains as you guys, but still, yeah, I can remember of 3 gigs. The very first time I saw Deep Purple in 2012, Blue Oyster Cult, they were opening, so it was a really good night. And the sound was very crap because it's Faovan. This is in Colmar. This is like an exhibition for wine, and the arena is very bad. But anyway, we don't pay that much.
I saw that tour in the UK.
Yeah, and 2012. So first time I got to see Deep Purple. So yeah. 2019, prior COVID, in a small venue in the same city of Colmar, got to see Uli Roth, former guitar player of Scorpions. Steve was talking about Scorpions in one of the video he posted earlier. Lonesome Crow has his first favorite Scorpions album. It doesn't play. Does he play on that one on Lonesome Crow?
Who's that? Schenker?
No, Uli Roth.
No,
no.
Schenker leaves after the first
album.
Yeah.
They had 2 bands called the Dawn Road and the Scorpions, and they just merged together. But they were more people from Dawn Road, so they kept the name Scorpions since they already had an album out. And on Fly to the Rainbow, he played from Fly to the Rainbow up until Tokyo Tapes, the live album. Then he left, and I had chances to see him, and very, very friendly. I can,
Okay, yep, Willie, yep.
He sent me all the album in a very small. He play all that stuff solo. They were like 5 guitar player on a small stage, and they played Fly to the Rainbow stuff, Virgin Killer, In Trance. Amazing memory. And the third one last year here in Montreal, Peter Gabriel. Finally, I got to see Peter Gabriel. First part of the concert, the new album, dedicated new album, then the second part, all the classics. And when he were singing Don't Give Up, I literally cried. Yeah. So yeah. Steve?
Well, I mean, one that always has to stand out is your first big concert, So because it's an all new experience, and my first was I was 16. I go to see Alice Cooper on the $1 Billion Babies tour.
Oh, great!
Which was, I mean, just fantastic. I mean, they're at their peak.
Yeah.
Commercially, musically, it was just incredible experience, and I didn't even know what to expect because I'm I'm thinking it's going to be Alice Cooper once the curtain comes down, but no, it's Flo and Eddie, who are the Turtles. Okay, they were the opening act. Okay, and so they're singing "Happy Together" and stuff like that. Eleanor, which are all great tunes, but I'm 16. I'm there to see Alice Cooper, so that would definitely be one of them. And this is always the conversation about your favorite concerts. A lot of it, once again, comes down to age. Okay, because I think I grew up in the best era to see live music.
Yeah, yeah,
It-
really, yeah.
from 70 to 80, I think that was the best stretch of recorded music. So I think the concerts are going to be the best. So, like, I think it was 76. I saw McCartney on the Venus and Mars, which became Wings Over America tour. That was great. I saw Led Zeppelin on the Physical Graffiti tour. And that was even before the album had come out. Chicago was one of the very first stops on that tour. And they're playing stuff, you didn't even know. I saw Pink Floyd on the Animals tour. But I'll tell you one that's very memorable just because of it revolved around a vacation. Mott the Hoople had announced in 2009 that they were reuniting because of Buffin. He
Yeah.
had dementia and he needed help financially.
Yeah.
And Ian Hunter had always, had his foot on the ground saying, we're not getting back together, guys. But he decided they were going to do 5 nights at the Hammersmith.
Yeah.
And so tickets went on sale at 3 in the morning here in Chicago. So I got up, set my alarm, got up. I got tickets for 2 of the 5 shows. So my wife and I, we went to London to see those shows. And so that would definitely be there just because of the whole experience. I mean, it was a great vacation. We split our time between London and Edinburgh. So it's just a great trip. And then I also saw AC/DC with Bon Scott in a bar in Chicago. Okay. Well, Chicago suburb. So, I mean, at that point, obviously they hadn't made it yet in America. And I can remember, Bon Scott hanging us up on his shoulders, walking around that tiny little stage.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a great experience to have seen a band like that in that setting. So, like you said, Springsteen. First time I saw Springsteen too, David, was on the River Tour. Now I've seen him 43 times.
Oh, you're ahead of me. I think I'm about number 38 or 39.
Greatest performer I've ever seen. Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Nobody can work a crowd like him. The guy just has incredible stamina. But kind of like you, I gave up on him post The Rising. I don't know if that's where you kind of jumped off musically, but
I think it was Western Stars finished it for me, really. And I know when he, I'll tell you what it was. He toured the river again, maybe about 10, 12 years ago, and I thought it's a bit of a retread, and I thought I'm not going to go, but the Wrecking Ball is an amazing album, fantastic album. But yeah, he still, as I said, he still got it. He still got it.
Oh, I would say one other big one I saw this was 75. I saw Rush and Kiss together in a high school gymnasium.
Oh,
Okay.
In 75.
75, yeah.
Wow,
So,
one of the early concert.
yeah, it's the Fly By Night and Hotter Than Hell tours for 2 of them.
They started to be very, very big. Rush, they started as people thought they were like a Led Zeppelin cover. Yeah. On the
the
first album,
album's Led Zeppelin, isn't it?
That first album that's my first
Yeah.
first discovering them was hearing the first album when it came out. That
Finding My Way.
to this day is my favorite album by Rush, is their debut.
Yeah, it's still a great one with Working Man, which were played like highly rotation in this radio station and WMMS in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And people were phoning, "Hey, what's the new Led Zeppelin song?" No, it's a Canadian band, so they got bigger and bigger. And Yeah, it's not my favorite one. It's not because I'm a pro nerd, so I cannot say. It's a good one, Working Man, and In the Mood, and
Right.
yeah, it's still a brilliant one.
But I just let me come in. I saw Bon Scott fronting AC/DC as well in about 1,000 capacity nightclub in Newcastle, and I seem to recall that he put Angus on his shoulders and walked around the audience.
He may have.
Yeah,
I just don't
yeah,
remember. I know me and my
yeah.
buddy that went. We met a couple stewardesses that night, and we went out in between acts and got stoned in the parking lot. So there's some of it I probably don't remember.
Yeah. But Bon Scott, I mean, the whole persona, it was like really sleazy. You know, it was really like a dirty gig. You know, it was. But and Brian Johnson, of course, who took his place. He was in front of the band called Geordie, which was from
Jordy,
my
yeah,
hometown,
yeah.
and that's what we are. We're called Geordies. But Romy, you'll like this one. I missed this gig, and I forever regret it because as my old buddy when I was 16, he saw Mott the Hoople,
Yeah.
who I love, and I didn't see them. I saw Ian Hunter on tour a couple of times, but the support act was Queen.
Yeah, that's when they did their. That's when they did on Broadway. They played when they were here.
Yeah,
Queen, wow. Yeah.
yeah. Seven Seas of Ryan, all that stuff.
Yeah, I recently got into Mott the Hoople, also thanks to Michael Wrightsville. He has a great channel. He lives in Japan, originally from the US, and he often mentions that band, and recently get a hold of Wildlife. I always
Sorry, I was just going to say, was there a question about have we met anybody famous?
Yeah, Mike had asked that. MGK
Mike asked
did.
Mike. Yeah, I have to back in the comment.
I mean, I've met some just because of my line of work, but and then meet and greets. I mean, my favorite one was doing it with Alice Cooper. I don't know how well this will show up there. There's Alice strangling me. He couldn't have been nicer. He was very generous with his time.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were maybe just about 100 of us. I kind of counted the room to see. Thankfully, the friend of mine that I went with, we sat at one of the first tables when we walked in, and that's how they did it. They were just going from table to table, but he would spend like 5 minutes with each person. You'd sit up there. You could bring 3 items for him to autograph for you, and you talked a little bit. So it was a great experience.
I used to go backstage at Newcastle City Hall often. And so many famous bands, Genesis. I met Peter Gabriel a couple of times. Peter Hamill. If you're interested in prog, I don't know whether you know Peter Hamill, Van de Graaff Generator.
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic. Yeah. A really charming guy, really friendly guy as well. I met all the E Street Band, Boss Springsteen, back in the day as well. And I think I did this video. My 1978 video, best 20 albums of 1978. I recounted the story where I got into the Nebworth Festival the day before the gig and saw and met Genesis doing soundcheck. Ended up on TV, albeit tiny, but it was amazing standing next to the guys. It was really great, really fantastic.
Yeah, you made a video with a picture that you.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, and I did meet. Steve Howe.
Say again.
I did meet Steve Howe in a hotel corridor, just briefly.
He seems to be. I mean, I know there's a couple of channels. I'm not sure if they're in the vinyl community, but they do the music stuff. And there's a couple of guys who have interviewed Steve Howe, and he seems a really, really friendly guy. Really nice.
Yeah, I would say he's a reluctant rock star.
Yeah.
I don't think he, clamors for that kind of fame. I mean, he was nice, but it almost too seemed like he was uncomfortable being recognized, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I just talked to him for 30 seconds. That was it. And
I think I don't know about you guys, but back in the day, I was, I was super excited to meet these famous people. They lived in a completely different world. But right now, I think for years now, if I met somebody famous, I just wouldn't bother them.
Yeah.
I just say hi and that's it.
yeah,
I mean, it'll be fantastic to have dinner or have a beer with a few of these artists, where no one's watching the clock. It would be great. But just a queue for a meet and greets and that sort of thing, nah. Let them get on with their life. Their job is to provide us with product that we can enjoy and thrill us and enthuse us, and it's not to be sociable. So I'm
Yeah.
quite cool with just saying hi and bye.
yeah, they just make so much money from that now, you know, because
Yeah.
they're not selling albums. So I mean, they
Mm,
make their money from the meet and greets and the merch. So
yeah.
Okay, which brings us to the next topic. Favorite. So you can see it's David who wrote favorite with a British. just for sorry
I
about
made a
that.
short list for this one.
you're
Yeah,
speaking the King's English there, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
You write
that's
tires with Y, not with I. Yeah,
Yeah, I made a list of four that I always tune into for different reasons. Obviously, Mike, MGK Boston. I do like the way that he's very irreverent, and that Friday cheers thing that he does, and that stupid cat that comes and keeps biting him and scratching him. It makes me laugh every time. Obviously, you two guys. I also love Brian, Embryonic Robot.
Yep, Brian's
He's
right.
up in Canada too. I love Vinyl Richie, even though his musical taste is so different than mine. I don't know whether you follow Vinyl Richie, but he does like punk, real hardcore punk. But he's a funny guy, and I do like Mazzy. I do like Norman Maslov because there's undeniable that he's he's older. Might even be older than you as well, Steve. But he's got lots of experience. He loves the Beatles a bit too much for my liking, but he's super knowledgeable and he's very comfortable in front of the camera. And so I do like watching him. Although I have a beef with Norman, and that is he's either incredibly rich or he gets loads of freebies from the record companies because he's always holding up really expensive albums. How do you get onto that train? That's what I want to know.
I know he came across a big collect of a friend that had passed away. I remember he did a video about going to his home, and I mean, and they rented a truck, so it was quite a sizable collection. But yeah.
Steve, the floor is yours.
Let's see. Well, you know, I mean, I have my regulars, the people that I really, you know, communicate with a lot. But to me, the guy that has it's must see TV, it is Jeff Witcher's Final Destination. His deep dives, when he does them, it's just an incredible amount of work. He has great skill with editing. He's funny, knowledgeable, and I remember when he did the Led Zeppelin, he did a deep dive for all 8 Led Zeppelin albums, and each one was about 30 minutes long.
Mm.
And when he did Led Zeppelin 4, I commented, you know, I asked him, I said, how many hours did this take you to put together? And he said, roughly about 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, he puts a lot of time into it. You know, plus he's married, he works, he has kids. So, I mean, he may sleep less than me. I don't know. But Jeff's channel, I really enjoy his stuff. But, you know, like you said, MGK and Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll, like he was my first. It's like your first you know, album that you hear. You love it by that artist. Well, Gary was my first introduction to the VC. And actually, I'm meeting Gary for the first time on May 17th. He lives in Ohio. I'm driving to Cincinnati to see Uriah Heep there, so we're going to meet up at the concert with also with Alex from Beer and Vinyl. The three of us are going to meet up there.
Yeah,
So,
I like him too.
yeah, Alex. Alex, another guy, 33 years old, really knows his music, but the older music. I mean, the music that you and I grew up with, David. He knows it. Sometimes he'll say like he's like Sam St. John too. Sam St. John's only 30. They'll say things about those acts that I've been very intimate with for 50 years. And I'm like, I don't ever remember hearing that story, or I did not know that. And so those kind of guys, like you, FBA, I mean, you guys impressed me. I mean, you're, you're old souls, but, you're young men.
I am. Yeah, I am. Totally. Yeah. It's not the first time someone. No, I am.
Yeah, I'm young. I know.
And all that back catalogue yet to discover.
Yeah. I mean, that's the good and the bad about it. I mean, you got to pay a premium price for it now.
That's right.
And, it's not already in your existing collection. So,
Still building up. Yeah.
yeah.
To me, very hard to, of course, you guys, and I'm really, and I mean it really, David. I'm a big fan of your videos since day one. Your non-musical related content, and it's every video pops. Sometimes I don't have time, and I really take the time to watch it quietly several times, and not only say, "Hey, hello, hey, great," because I know there is something very interesting that will be coming out of it, and help my reflection, and hope we have a good exchange, and Steve as well. Steve, very supportive. He's been on my channel almost from day one, and we have a lot of common ground. The prog rock. We are having a prog stream on his channel, and he was kindly invited me to join, and I was really happy because I love this genre, and it gives me the opportunity to to get a little more and more people in on his network. And every video, as I said, the 5 years in the life of an artist, very structured. You get a lot of information within 10 or 15 minutes. And I like the personage, the character, as we say in France, very friendly. So yeah. And I also like a German channel which called Across the Borderline. Is a channel in German, so yeah, you have to speak German. His name is Erwin. He's very knowledgeable, Americana folk. Really like his voice, the way he talks. Michael 45, he has a weekly live stream on Wednesday. It's very interesting, with Thomas Busk and Stunny all often participate. Thomas Busk, he's a guy in Denmark. He has a huge collection of everything, rare stuff, and he play the stuff. So they sometimes dedicate a show to Fela Kuti, to Verve label, to post-punk. They choose a topic, and you get to listen to amazing stuff from all over the world music. So it's a Michael 45 channel, and my buddy Fred, Big Star 1000. We have a lot of things in common. We both Frenchmen. He's been living in Australia for 20 years. He's 10 years older than me, and we grew up we are from the same neck of the wood in France, so to say. And he has more experience. He has a greater collection, and I think he's showing me the path, because he was very into some kind of music that I'm in now, and he's very curious about discovering new stuff, world music, and the way he talks. I thought, okay, maybe it's me in the future. Everyone does its own past journey, but having someone like that, so you can trust. It's someone you can trust, and but so many channels, it's really hard to pick 3 or 4 or 5. So yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, the longer you're in this, the more people you get to know and channels you end up liking. How do you keep up with them? And I don't know if you guys do what I do. A lot of times I'll set the speed at 1.25, 1.50. Now it depends upon the person who's talking. Some people just talk fast naturally, so it's hard to put them on fast. But so I can get through more videos in a shorter amount of time, I speed up the play because nobody's playing music anyway. So, you know, and it allows me to get through more. Like MGK Boston, hard to put him on past 1.25 because Mike talks pretty fast. I can't do his at 1.5, but he sounds like a chipmunk. Um, but there's a lot of them that I will just put at a faster speed because it takes a 10-minute video might only take me 7 minutes to watch it. So
Yeah. How do I sound in 1.5?
Yeah, I'm a bit worried here.
like a stupid French. Anyway,
I think
Oh.
the thing I would add is that there's some people out there in the vinyl community who, and I kind of hinted at this earlier, where they're definitely giving, well, two things. One, they do a little bit of homework, but not too much homework. Notwithstanding what the guy you were talking about earlier, Steve, who did the Zeppelin rundown. So I don't know that particular channel, but I think it's important to do a little bit of homework. Otherwise, you kind of got to sell the proposition. You've got to have something to offer somebody, rather than just hold up albums. So I really appreciate people who can evidence that they've really thought about it, maybe lived with the albums a little bit before they talk about them. Don't just pull them out from the shelves and so on and so forth. And the second component is, this is what I trailed earlier. If they give a bit about their personal life circumstance, just makes the whole thing a lot more interesting. I mean, I know you guys only online, but I'm Spreadsheet Steve. What the hell was that all about? You've told us today on this live stream, so I didn't know that. That's great to know. I'm curious about what work people do, and how are they able to, like you were saying earlier, Romy, how's people who have got families and are working like hell, they make time to put thoughtful videos together. And so in a way, the ones that give more get more attention in my books. I will give more of my time and concentrated time to people who do that little bit extra.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
yeah, like Mike mentions here, he's got his invites out to you guys. It's amazing that this is happening. How many people are going to meet up at his house for this party?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I will. Thank you very much.
It's quite
I'll
incredible.
check it out, Mike.
Yeah, it's one thing to say that about the VC, how everybody gets along, but really, it's quite a testimony to Mike, because he's so well liked that all these people want to go and spend time at his party.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure I could keep up in the beer drinking stakes, though. Not anymore.
And we have reached the final topic of today's stream.
yeah, okay. Any other random stuff we come up? Oh, I'm gonna thank David for turning me on to Big Train with the review of their latest album. I picked that up. I've only listened to it 3 times so far, but I do like it, but I need to spend more time with it. That's one thing I wonder about when you guys come across a new album. When you do a review of that, how many listens do you give it? Because a lot of albums you need to spend a lot of time with.
Yeah, you're right.
Just to give you a clue, I think I listened to the Big Train new album about 7 or 8 times.
Okay, yeah,
but I've still got to do. And this album I think came out in October. I've still got the review of Roger Waters doing Dark Side of the Moon that I've been chewing over for weeks on end.
The Redux,
Redux. I've got something to say about that album, but even though I've listened to it 20, 25 times now, I'm still formulating my thoughts. Because I know when that album came out, it was very controversial, and people have strong opinions about Roger Waters because of his politics and his relationship or feud with David Gilmour. And I thought, well, I'm not going to, and a lot of people put videos out, and I'm not going to jump on that particular bandwagon. No. I'm going to listen to this as if it's just a piece of art. I'm going to take what I think about the artist out of the equation, because there's a lot of people that if I was really interested in the personalities and the backstory of some of these artists that I like Van Morrison, who's got a terrible reputation, I wouldn't listen to the music. And for me, I put that to one side. I listen to the music, and I've been chewing over Dark Side of the Moon Redux for about 6 months now.
Yeah,
The video will come out.
Trust the art, not the artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I canceled everybody who I didn't like their politics or whatever, I wouldn't have a lot to listen to, or read, or watch.
Yeah.
You know,
I would listen to the Carpenters all night long.
Have you heard that story about Karen Carpenter?
No, and I don't want to.
You don't want to know either.
No. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I know. The picture that yeah. No, but you're right. You're right. My father, my wife, she gave me for my birthday the last album of PG Harvey's, and I'm still not able to talk about that one on one of my video. I listened to maybe 2 or 3 times. It's not enough.
I haven't listened to it yet. I've had it for about 3 months, and I haven't listened to it yet.
Mike from Mike's Vinyl Spiral talk about that one. A lot of people in the German vinyl community, member of the German VC, and so I give a try. It's not but okay. I think if anyone
any questions or any
remarks,
thoughts?
Remark.
Well, FEA, now that you are in a bigger city, do you find yourself going to more mainstream concerts now?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
you
definitely.
certainly have the opportunity to see them now.
Yeah, like I said, Peter Gabriel last year, and only talking about festival. As Montreal is a great city for culture, a lot of different population, the French-speaking part, the English-speaking part, a lot of immigrants from South America. So the festival, the local bands, they play in a small clubs or a small bars. It's sometimes really interesting, that fusion between folk and ska and Cuban music. It's So a concert, but a great concert, the price, you have to consider that aspect. So I would love to go to see every month, but it's so freaking expensive sometimes. So I have to think about it.
Yeah, I mean,
it
was one of the great things about living in a city like Chicago, because when bands come to the States,
they all go there.
There are 3 cities they're definitely going to play, and that's LA, Chicago, and New York. I mean, every band stopped here.
Yeah.
So,
back at you mentioned this a bit earlier, Steve, but back in the 70s, you could see these bands in small venues, 2,000 seaters, 3,000 seaters, and the ticket prices were reasonable.
I mean, even when
price to go to a football game, you could buy a ticket to see a famous rock band instead.
Yeah.
Now I had tickets to see Nick Cave before the lockdown, when the lockdowns came in, and the gig was cancelled, or the tour was cancelled. And then when he came back out on tour, the ticket prices were just astronomical. And I thought, and it's big arena stuff. And I love Nick Cave. I mean, he's like my favorite artist of the last 15, 20 years. But I want to see him in a theater. I don't want to see him in a great big shed. And we've got a great symphony hall here in Birmingham. And I might go and see Yes, who are coming May or June. There's still some tickets up in the gods. So because I only ever saw them with Trevor Horn on out front. I never saw them with John Anderson. So, and of course there's John Davison there who's fronting the band. So it's not the real Yes, some people will say, but I'm kind of curious to see whether they can pull it off on stage.
What size venue is that?
It's a purpose-built symphony hall, so the
So
acoustics are amazing.
right, yeah. So what, like a 4,000 seater?
Yeah, well, maybe 3,000 seater, I think. It's just a beautiful building. I've seen so many bands, artists there, loads of classical concerts. So Emmylou there, Mary Chapin Carpenter there. I've seen Steve Hackett there. Springsteen there doing the Ghost of Tom Joad tour, which was amazing. But yeah, fantastic. But of course, Birmingham being a bit, on the huge side, it's got great big sheds as well. I saw Gabriel here in one of the sheds back in October, I think it was. Deep Purple and Blue Oyster Cult and all that sort of stuff. So I've kind of been put off by those big gigs and the expense of going. And I'm just, as I get older, I'm just less tolerant of other people. Because I had this debate with a really good friend of mine. Because I'm not big on audience participation when it comes to, sing along a Bruce, if you like, on a Springsteen concert and everything. And we had this debate some years ago, and I said, look, my relationship is not with my fellow audience members. My relationship is with the artist and the music the artist is pumping out. So for me, I go to these gigs and I'm in the zone. I could be on my own in the arena or in the concert hall, and I'm trying to soak in as much of that experience as I possibly can. And but you go to some of these gigs. I remember, I saw Springsteen in Paris some years ago, and some French guy got overexcited and jumped on my back. And I just thought, I've had enough. I'm too old for this shit anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. So, the idea of seeing Mark Farner in a little pub somewhere or a club, that kind of is more intriguing to me now than the big arenas.
The Stunt Rock brought up a great point, because I was going to ask you, because you're living there, why did so many great bands in the late 60s, early 70s come out of Birmingham, that area? I mean, because you've got Zeppelin and Uriah Heep, and I mean, Jeff Lynne's from Birmingham, and I mean, there's countless numbers of bands. I mean,
Judas Priest,
was it something in Judas Priest? Was it something in the water or what?
I think it was. I'll tell you what. The Beatles put Liverpool on the map, really.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure. I mean, I'm too young to remember Liverpool in my. As a young boy, I'd heard of London, I'd heard of New York, I'd heard of Paris. I hadn't really heard of Liverpool or Birmingham, but they put Liverpool on the map, and there was Jerry and the Pacemakers as well, and I think there was it was such a fertile period for pop and rock music, and I think there was in the UK at the time were, I mean, I'm not a defender of the UK in this regard, but they were undoubtedly pioneers, and some of the biggest names in rock did come out of the UK.
This is
America, but the UK was really pivotal in that.
This is what,
and I think it was almost like a competition between the major cities. So there was a Newcastle scene, like the Animals came out of there, and that later on you got Mark Knopfler and Sting came out of Newcastle, Lindisfarne, if you're interested in folk rock. But Birmingham had a scene, the bands that you mentioned, and that was more bluesy based, more pop based in Liverpool, more bluesy based in Newcastle as well. And of course, back in the 90s, there was a Bristol scene as well, the likes of Massive Attack and all that. That was a bit of a scene going on. So I think it was almost, I'll say one final thing. I think part of it might be, this is me pure speculation, is that London is so dominant in the UK. It overwhelms everything else culturally.
Yeah.
And I think there's a determination in these other cities and the culture of all these other cities to say, we're going to make our mark. We're going to stake our claim to part of this scene. And so, Manchester, Liverpool, Newcastle, Birmingham, and so on, almost as a bit of a pushback to London.
Yeah, because Stunt Rock mentions, Birmingham it's way more working class. I know it's always been kind of like Pittsburgh is
Yeah.
the U.S. comparison for Birmingham. You know, they're both steel
Mm.
cities, and yeah,
Yeah,
well,
this,
that's why Judas Priest named the album British Steel.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, so
yeah. This is
I
what
think
Graham.
all it takes is one band to make it big, and all the A&R guys come into that city and say, who else is in this scene that we've never heard of?
right, yeah, it was the big thing with grunge rock here, how Seattle
Yeah.
became, you know,
Yeah. If there's a book to be made, they'll be there.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think there is also a difference south and north of England. I
Yeah.
heard Graham Nash. He came from Blackpool, I think.
Oh, okay. Lancashire, yeah.
Yeah, and he were mentioning that. Yeah, at the beginning they were like this antagonism between the people they had fun in the south part of England and the worker at the north, and
I think the other thing is that, I mean, a lot of bands, a lot of music critics who are based in London, always based in London, they don't like to travel. They like to party. They like to be in the scene, on the scene. So when you get bands coming out of the provinces, unless they're absolute giants like Zeppelin or the Beatles or Sabbath, the music critics down in London kind of think, well, you know, they're going to have to be really special for us to pay attention. And so I think that creates that antagonism to say, to hell with these guys, we're going to fight our corner here and make sure that we get noticed.
yeah, I think in France it's pretty much the same. You have, if you want to have a chance to have a career, you have to go to Paris. You can keep your southern part identity, but it will be hard if you, as an actor, or as a band, or as a singer, if you stay in your home country, in your hometown. You have to go to Paris because everything is
Yeah, I mean,
everything.
I've always had that chip on my shoulder about LA and New York, you know, being from Chicago. You know, Chicago is more of the working class city of those three cities. And press wise, like you say about London with the critics, there is a big time East Coast bias as far as journalists are considered. Okay. And then you get the Hollywood contingent. So, you know, Chicago kind of gets squeezed out. It's almost like Chicago's opinion doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's the city known for a city of the blues, so it's a pity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, interesting questions. What do you think, David, of Van Halen? Van Halen.
I love them. I'd never really. I think it's a bit hit and miss with me with hard rock. So, you know, brought up with Deep Purple and Zeppelin, Rush, you know, back in, you know, I saw Rush in the 70s a couple of times as well. And I think when the Van Halen's almost like the last great hard rock band that I really hand on heart say I really love. Because the new wave of British heavy metal that came along in the 80s kind of just passed me by, really. But Van Halen's first album, I mean, I love in Talking About Love, Running with the Devil. But for me, you know, it's 1984 is the album is like the greatest hits to me. I mean, you just play that. I used to have, we used to have, always remember we had a house party, and I shared this house with some friends, and we had this house party, and I set up the music in this suburban area, and I remember we're playing Jump, Turn Up to 11, all the way through the neighborhood, and I just kept playing it. I just kept putting it on and walking out the street and say, God, can I get any louder? It's fantastic. So yeah, I love Van Halen, although I never saw them live. Never saw them.
Only saw them one time.
Yeah, I saw better than live. I never saw them live, but my favorite soccer team in France, when they enter into the pitch,
Yeah,
it's always the music that is played in Marseille. So just for the record.
yeah.
No, I
Okay.
didn't say it's a working class city. It's a more of a working class city than LA or New York.
Yeah.
I mean, New York, it's the financial center of the world, not just of America. And then LA, you've got Hollywood. So
yeah, we haven't really touched upon. I mean, a little bit of discussion earlier about blues music, but we haven't touched on soul and all that midwestern stuff. All those black artists. I mean, I love Gil Scott-Heron, Stevie Wonder, just so many others. And but I do find it quite tricky. Is that when you listen to prog music or hard or 70s kind of hard rock, soul music, being brought up in that era, soul music was kind of throwaway in those days. I mean, Stevie Wonder's albums and the Norman Whitfield Temptations albums and such like kind of came after Motown's heyday, and Stax had kind of almost been and gone, although Isaac Hayes was still pumping out stuff. It just wasn't in the mainstream. And so that's the sort of stuff I've gone back and discovered over the years, but it's not right in my heart the way that early 70s rock and prog rock really grabbed me and still has me there today.
yeah, it's not music I ever owned growing up. You know, I never had a Supremes album or a Temptations album or a Jackson 5 album or a Stevie Wonder album. I mean, I was listening to, what most white suburban kids were listening to, I mean,
Yeah, but what's going on? To me, it's almost like a classic rock album. It's not rock at all, but I can rank in the classic rock in the classic albums anyway.
Well, it's a piece of art, isn't it? In the way that the 60s Motown were, and this is really unfair on 60s Motown, but it was almost like they were pumping out albums where the first track was the hit and the rest of it was filler, and it was bang, bang, bang. Whereas when you got around to the early 70s and Marvin Gaye's transition into say what's going on and let's get it on and so on, those were statements, they were artistic statements where they brought the artist had broken away from the somewhat oppressive management who had previously told them what they were allowed to do. And I think that was the big change, wasn't it?
Yeah, I read a book written by David Hepworth, a famous journalist, called The Golden Era, or How the LP Saved Our Lives. And he describes the period from 1967 up until 1982 as a golden era of the LP. Because after that, Walkman home taping killed the way we consume music. And prior, the year of the singles, like garage rock. Everything university label owned singles then disappeared. So it's only a shortened period of time. Wouldn't say in the 90s they were bad albums. They were albums as well, but the golden era of the LP is not 1962. It's probably between some.
Well, what happened too after album sales dropped off, the art of sequencing was lost too. It was so important with an album. What started side one, what ended side one, first song on side two, and then what ended the album. But when you started recording, thinking you've got a 70 to 80-minute canvas, it seemed like sequencing didn't matter as much.
I totally agree. Yeah, and this was the bad because I didn't have a lot of money when I was 14 or 16, so I bought mainly greatest hit compilation, best of, and because I just wanted to have an overview of a Dire Straits or U2 or whatever. But it's bad because Hendrix, for instance, put so much effort. The sequencing was very important, not only for him. But yeah, totally agree. Stun Rock. Wait, are you guys?
Not great. So, are you guys saying nostalgia is your drive? For me, I endeavor to be the absolute opposite of a nostalgic listener. I try and take the music on its own terms. So I often listen in the dark in this place between the speakers. I'm not interested so much in the backstory. I never use music to rekindle memories from my early years. If I've retained memories, it's incidental. The music still has to stand up to me today, for me today. So yeah, nostalgia is not my drive.
Me neither. I buy records. It's in my life. It's right now. When I travel to the UK, I find a UK press 1967. I buy it right now. I'm using right now, so I share with the people on the internet. 2024. I have friends. We can discover. It's not a nostalgic thing, so it's part of my today's experience. And I
Yeah.
never lived through these years. And I can be nostalgic if I will be back in France in 2 weeks. So if my sister plays something we were listening to when we were kids, maybe nostalgia, yeah, but not in my collection, not in the way that the music that I love, I wanted to buy or discover. What is for you, Steve?
Well, to me, the nostalgia is just a byproduct. I mean, it just it's something that happens while I'm listening. I don't intentionally grab an album and say, I want to go back to 1972. I mean, I might play Black Sabbath Volume 4, which is for 72, and it may remind me of something. I mean, that happens. But I love coming across albums from the 60s and 70s that I never heard, that are completely new to me. It's a new experience.
Yep.
But also, I mean, like all of these albums that I showed you, like Riverside and No Sound. I mean, it's new music, and I love discovering that too.
It
So
is it is new
it
music, yeah, yeah.
to me, it is one of the great things about the VC is people turning you on to bands you never would have come across. I mean, sometimes somebody will talk about them, and I'll be like, okay, I'll check out, just because I still like to buy music the way I bought it when I was growing up, where I might only know one song from the radio, and that was it. I had nowhere else. There was no internet. There was no MTV. I had nowhere else to hear any of those other songs. So for me, a lot of albums were always blind buys, unless you had a friend who already had that album. So I still do that. If somebody recommends an album on YouTube, I'll listen to maybe 3 or 4 songs, 30 seconds of each song. That's all I want to hear. And from that, I'll say, okay, maybe I will buy it. That's how I do a blind buy now. I mean, like Big Train, I didn't listen to any of that, David. It was just
Yeah.
based on your review.
Mm.
And so, I'll do that.
I think it's also, I think one of, people who have a more casual attitude to music, I think often are use it as a memory jogger. It's a kind of a bit of a nostalgia thing, and it's the music of their youth. And certainly for me, what I buy new music all the time, but it's new music to me. So I've got a vast jazz collection that I'm scratching the surface on. And I know it's going back. I'm going back to discover stuff, but it's new to me. It's nothing to do with being a memory jogger or a nostalgia trip for me. It's kind of what's the essence of this music that is going to turn me on today in
Yeah.
the moment. Can I give it full concentration and get something back from it rather than just noise? So I keep buying new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to hit the button. Hit the
Well,
subscription button to these guys. So subs to David Atkinson, Life Matters, and Steve, All the Words of Stage. I will put the link in the descriptions. What is your experience? Did you enjoy these 2 hours and 23 minutes that we've been having
yeah. I
together?
mean, thank you for inviting me. I mean, time flew by, and it was great
Yeah,
to get to know you guys a little better.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
because I will always say, to me, the best thing about the live streams is the chat before and after. It's not necessarily the live stream itself, but that little bit of time off air, you get to know people.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I'm really, really happy you accept my invitation. You guys, the concept I'm trying to explore. reaching out to people, not waiting that someone is coming. Is great. Someone is coming, watching, commenting. But in the near future, I'll plan on more streams like that when I will be reaching out people. Like the first stream I had, when we had one Nadine from Germany, very into soul music, one guy from the US, very into jazz, and bringing the people together, finding a common ground. This is what a community is all about. This is how I see things, and I will definitely try more live stream like that. So
yeah, I think just for my part, I think it's been great, and I think as Steve said, time's flown past really quick. I think it's been stimulating hearing you guys talk about your experiences and where we've got an overlap. I think it's absolutely great. I think it's I enjoyed for all the reasons that you guys have mentioned. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to participate with you guys again in the future, and maybe others as well. I'm not sure if I can master the technology to host one, but we'll see where that takes us.
Before FBA, before you sign off, you have to show Spectrum Archives comment there. This last one. That might be the comment of the day.
No comment, no reaction from my end.
you will never lose your hair, FBA. I mean,
no, you can just tell, can't you? You can tell.
Will always have a full head of hair.
Yeah,
I already had your haircut. I will show you maybe off, but anyway. Yeah. So once again, thank you very much for all the people who are tuning in. Replay available. Next week, next Saturday, I will be hosting a very special live stream with a legend, a guy who is a record store dealer in the Netherlands, and he was like a zillion time all the way to South America, digging vinyl in Peru, in Colombia. He does the trade show in Milan, in Barcelona several times a year, and we will be having a very nice discussion. So you can hope you guys you can tune in, and
that could be more special than this one.
Everything is special. You guys are special. I'm special. Yeah. No, I overused that word special. I agree. When I rewatch my video, special episode is special. I'm French, in France everything is so special. No, it's a joke.
Yeah, it's been really good. Well done. Thanks for hosting it.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Stay tuned for next chapter. Bye-bye.
Alrighty. Goodbye.
See you, everyone.